everyone, this is the Gridiron Review, and these are our top 5 quarterbacks for the 2023 NFL Draft. Starting off, we have the 3 who did not quite make the top 5 but could easily be switched out for number 5. Will Levis is a player who we just cannot get behind drafting in the first round. If anyone has watched any other videos on our channel, you'll know this is the case. He's got a decent amount of physical tools but overrated athleticism. His arm is probably very good, but it is not the top in this class or the top in recent years as he claimed. We have concerns about his attitude leading to a lack of development, especially when you consider he shows an alarming lack of understanding of defenses. He doesn't throw with great anticipation, and he is really not great at sensing the pressure and what to do when he's pressured. Overall, he'd be much better served being a second-round pick given time to fully develop and sit behind an established veteran with a good coach in place. Hendon Hooker would probably be number 5 for us if he were either younger or not coming off an ACL tear. It kind of gives concern to him being able to play right away with the injury. That being said, he's a high-level competitor. He shows up when he's needed. Just look at the Alabama game. He's got decent athleticism and a decent arm. Neither are elite, but neither are average either. And he just is acing the interviews and the pre-draft process by all accounts. We think he's going to be an early day 2 selection who may end up starting sooner rather than later, but his coming off of an injury and his age have us just rating him outside of the top 5. And then finally, Stetson Bennett is a player we really like his film on. We think he's underrated as a potential starting quarterback. That being said, he's not acing the pre-draft process. His combine was up and down, although he did show off a strong enough arm and good athleticism while barely running, it looked like. But reports are that his pro day was rough. He did get arrested, and we still think he can be a starter, but his draft stock is definitely not pointing up. We think he's going to go to some place, say Denver, where he can be a high-level backup while learning from a player that's got a similar play style. But considering his age and the pre-draft process, he does not make our top 5. Real quick, before we get into our top 5, we appreciate anyone that's watching, and we just ask if you could like and subscribe the video. Thanks. Number 5 for us is University of Houston quarterback Clayton Tune. Someone who had a decent combine, but also not amazing. And a couple of reasons for this is, first, he is very similar to Will Levis in our opinion, and they struggle with the same things. They have accuracy and anticipation issues, and the big difference is the cost. Levis is probably going to make you take him in the first round. Clayton Tune is a day 2 prospect. Our comparison for him is Geno Smith, someone that needs to go to the right situation, otherwise it might take him forever to get going. As we're going to do with all of the prospects, we're going to look at a little bit of film to show what he does well and what he doesn't do. And for Clayton Tune, it comes in all of one game against Southern Mississippi, where he had over 500 yards passing, 7 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and over 100 yards rushing. Tune is definitely an underrated athlete, and it's not talked about as part of his game, but we actually think he is a better athlete than Will Levis, although Levis probably has a stronger arm. But as you can see here, Tune's rushing is definitely a positive. And as we stated, Tune and Levis suffer from the same problems, which is anticipation. Here you see he just overthrows a wide receiver, and then in this ball it should have been picked off, but it wasn't due to a great play by his wide receiver. And you may look at this and think it's a lack of arm strength, but it is not the case when you see this next play, which is almost an identical depth and route run just on the other side. He hits it in perfect stride, and it results in a touchdown, just as the other one should have as well. Again, we think Tune and Levis are remarkably similar, but Tune is going to cost a lot less and will not have the first-round expectations that come with Levis. We know our list is not conventional, and we understand that people are going to be skeptical, but we promise we have done a lot of research and keep watching, and we find ourselves with Dorian Thompson-Robinson in our top 5, specifically at number 4. DTR has almost every record, yardage, passing, and the like you could have from UCLA, and a school that has produced a decent amount of quarterback prospects throughout the years. His combine was up and down. He did show that he has more than enough arm strength to survive at the NFL, but they did show his accuracy concerns, which we also have, as we believe he's going to need to sit for a year and develop. He also has slight injury concerns, as he has missed a little bit of time over his college career. Despite this, where he shines is his leadership and hustle. You may not find a better leader in this draft class, as well as he's a great athlete, and this is why he reminds us of Jalen Hurts. His throwing needs work, but he can make plays happen with his legs, and he's going to be a player that fellow players want to get behind and want to lead them, similar to how Jalen Hurts has been received in Philly. Right here, you're going to see a perfect example of his hustle. He's going to pitch the ball and then sprint to be the lead blocker for Zach Charbonnet. And this is something that shows up on film constantly. He does this every single game. And it's reminiscent, again, of something that Jalen Hurts would do for Philly. This is his hustle in a different way. He could have easily given up on the play and had it be a turnover, but he doesn't, and he lays the hit on the defensive lineman to break up the interception. This play highlights his athletic ability, his rushing ability, as well as his smartness. He doesn't take unnecessary hits, and this shows up in his throwing too. He doesn't make a lot of unnecessary throws, and this is just going to show his throwing motion that's really smooth upper body. We think his work has to be done on the lower body. He doesn't always step into his throws, but he has more than enough arm strength to make it in the NFL, and we see him getting picked on day 2 and immediately being a high-end backup while he develops. Bryce Young is our third-ranked quarterback in the 2023 NFL Draft. He is a great leader and answered interviews at the Combine very well. His arm is okay, it's a little bit above average, and his accuracy can be really spotty, and we'll show examples of what we're talking about. He has size concerns, although our rankings of him at 3 have nothing to do with that, and he is definitely an overrated athlete. Some people give him comparisons to someone like Kyler Murray or Patrick Mahomes, and while he's really good at maneuvering the pocket, he isn't the athlete that they are. In our opinion, Young is getting some really lofty comparisons, and that's going to hurt his professional career. It's unfair to him to say he's the next Drew Brees, Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, because he's none of those players. He is more than a fine prospect, but we think he's much closer to Alex Smith. And if he's taken number 1 overall, he should be fine, but he doesn't have the upside, in our opinion, that CJ Stroud or Anthony Richardson has. The game versus LSU is where you can see a lot of Bryce Young's issues. As you can see here, he just doesn't see the rush. Now, yes, Jahmyr Gibbs could have picked it up, but it was such a bang-bang play, and Young didn't see him blitzing. This is showing him unable to evade the rush. He's really going to struggle making people miss at the NFL. LSU really gave him fits, specifically pressuring in the middle. And when he is pressured in the middle, this is not good. His accuracy is greatly affected. And yes, everybody has a bad game, but this could be a big problem for Young at the NFL level if he has his weakness exposed so easily as just having pressure up the middle, especially given his height concerns. It's something that gives us great pause when talking about Young. And this whole game, he was extremely rattled and off. And you might say, again, that this is a bad game, but from talking about Bryce Young, the analysts would never let you believe that he had a game like this. When you see Latu wide open here and he looks off of him, yes, the ref was in the way. That being said, Young is great at maneuvering the pocket and moving around, as you can see here. Now, the throw he doesn't make, but it's a good example of how he can feel the pressure usually and use his good, not great athleticism to roll out and buy more time for the receivers. His motion, specifically his lower body, is not as clean as one might expect. It's a lot of high effort at times, but he excels at boundary throws using anticipation. And then we'll end it on a highlight reel for him, which is everything he can do well: maneuver the pocket, evade within the pocket, and deliver a strike down the field for a touchdown. Again, pressure on the inside is going to give him fits, and he needs to figure out how to fix this and excel despite getting guys way bigger than him in his face. But Bryce Young is a decently safe prospect who we do have some concerns about, and he reminds us a lot of Alex Smith. Not quite the athlete that Alex Smith was, but still in a similar mold. And a first overall pick potential that could be somewhat disappointing, but have a long career all the same. Our second-ranked quarterback is by far the riskiest prospect in this draft when you consider where he's going to go pick-wise and how much his ceiling and floor is separated. That being said, we may never have seen a quarterback with the ceiling that Anthony Richardson has, considering he's got a cannon for an arm, is a better athlete than Cam Newton despite being the same size, and just overall has all the tools to be one of the all-time greats, yet he's only played in 13 college games. It's truly an enigma. There are going to be a lot of comparisons to Josh Allen and Cam Newton, and these are certainly fair, but in our eyes, we are going with a more athletic Jordan Love, a player that has sat for 2 years, and you might need to do the same with Anthony Richardson to reach his full potential. Yes, we don't know what Jordan Love will be yet, but it is worth noting that it could very much pay off for the Packers, and we think Anthony Richardson also could do to sit behind an established veteran with a good coaching staff that can properly take the time and not rush him out onto the field. There are also probably going to be those who compare him to Jamarcus Russell, but by all accounts, Russell was someone who just didn't care about improving or studying or anything like that, and that does not seem to be Anthony Richardson in the slightest. Not that anyone needs a reminder, but this is just a quick thing showing off his natural arm strength. This was not a good throwing motion. His lower body was tight together, and yet it still was a flick of the wrist and got right where it needed to be. This highlights his issues with his throwing motion while in college. This is just not a good look. It's really long, it's out wide, it's not close tucked in, and his lower body is definitely out of sync, which does show up a lot on tape. And despite it getting there, it still shows that he had a lot of development to do with his motion. And then fast forward to the combine where he put on a clinic throwing and everything looks so much better. His motion is still slightly long, but his lower body is synced up perfectly, and he delivers a strike down the field, reminiscent of Josh Allen and his combine performance. The NFL Combine is not the be-all, nor should it be, but what it can show is things like player development from where they were in college, like it did with Anthony Richardson and his throwing motion. It also gives you an opportunity to see what kind of person they are. His interviews were amazing. He was always smiling, just seemed happy to be there. And when asked how he did after an amazing day, he was talking about what he could improve on. This matters, and it shows what kind of worker he is. Lastly, if you want to see his in-game smarts, you should look at his interview/quarterback room with Steve Mariucci while at the Combine. It was very well done, and it seems like he's very capable of leading an offense at the NFL level. None of this means he is not risky. Obviously, someone with as little college experience as him does carry risk, but his personality seems to be one that is going to always work hard, and in our opinion means he's very worthy of the #1 pick because the physical upside is unlimited. But if you're looking for the best combination of upside and floor and the most worthy of the #1 overall pick, you'll see our #1 ranked quarterback CJ Stroud, and he is a lot of people's #1 for a reason. He has probably the best accuracy in the whole class as well as the best anticipation. He has a strong arm, but it doesn't seem like it at times because his throwing motion is just that effortless. His mobility is underrated because he didn't always use it, but when you see the Georgia game from this year, he clearly shows that he can maneuver the pocket and take off and scramble if asked. Our biggest concern about him is, can he be a leader? Is he a leader? According to a lot of those fellow players, he was one of the leaders for Ohio State. When you look at his interviews at the Combine, it seems like he's a little uncomfortable in the limelight, which to us means he's not going to be a perfect fit for every single team. His tape is also incredibly inconsistent from year to year, but in our opinion, that's more to do with Ryan Day than it is to do with CJ Stroud. Watching film last year on players like Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, you saw a painful amount of bubble screens and quick screens that didn't allow Stroud to truly grow as a passer, or at least show his growth from year to year and progression in skill. And then you watch the Georgia game from this season, and the offense was much more pro style, and in turn, CJ Stroud looked by far the best he ever has. So we find ourselves wondering if, despite the elite weapons that Stroud has had over his career at Ohio State, that Ryan Day was really holding him back. Unfortunately, that's not something we may know until we see how Ohio State's year and CJ Stroud's rookie year go. We have him compared to Jameis Winston. We think they both have very similar arm talent, and we think they both are not awful leaders, but also maybe not commanding the locker room like you would want from a quarterback. CJ Stroud's answer at the Combine of looking up to Michael Vick and Deshaun Watson is absolutely something we could have seen Jameis Winston doing. But again, they both are very talented throwers of the football with decent athleticism, and I can see CJ Stroud running a high-powered offense like Jameis Winston did in Tampa Bay, except with a lot less turnovers. We're going to be looking at the film from the Georgia game, and this throw is just an example of his arm strength. It's very low effort, and yet it's right where it needs to be. And this play shows off what Stroud may do better than anyone else in this class, and that's progress through reads. Obviously, the play is not there, and yet he scans the field incredibly fast, gets through 3 reads or more, and then finds the right player for the touchdown while directing him and on the run. Now we'll have back-to-back throws that show a part of Stroud's game that really doesn't show up on film that much, especially before the Georgia game, which is to avoid pressure, move around in the pocket, especially on this play, and buy as much time as possible for a receiver to get open. Again, this is saying he can do it, and he's going to have to answer to teams why this wasn't on film more often, but you can clearly see from the last 2 plays that it is something he can do and can do at a high level. Now, we're only showing clips from the Georgia game because we feel it shows his upside more than anything. As stated multiple times, his tape is inconsistent, although, again, we suspect Ryan Day is a reason for this, maybe even the primary reason. But in our opinion, the Georgia game shows Stroud at his best, and at his best, he should be considered the #1 overall pick, no questions asked. And our comp of Jameis Winston may be even more of a floor for him than a ceiling. We appreciate anyone that has watched this video so far and made it to the end. We are truly grateful, and we ask that you like and subscribe. But just your engagement in general, leave a comment what you think, be respectful, and we hope to see you back on our channel.